What is up everybody, welcome to the very first episode of Right Let's Talk. Now this is a series in which we talk about anything under the sun, from motorcycles to cars to, even current affairs and events. Now for the very first episode, we'll be talking about something that it's pretty close to my heart and it concerns every one of you guys watching over here. And it's something that I wanted to do and talk about as soon as possible. So without further ado, right, let's talk about COVID-19 vaccinations. So for those of you guys who are new to my videos, hi, my name is Marcus and I'm turning 21 this year. I was previously an army medic during my national service. I OR'd on Valentine's Day this year. And I'm currently working as a vaccinator in a vaccination center. So my main role involves administering the COVID-19 vaccine to everybody that comes through. And I've been doing this for about the past 3 months. So I think I've vaccinated about a few thousand people already. So as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a huge impact on our daily lives. I'm glad to say that in Singapore we are actually in the recovery phase of it, where we are slowly reopening up our economy and gradually restoring social and economic activities to what we affectionately call a new normal. So a big part of this recovery phase is actually vaccinations, and the COVID-19 vaccine is one of them. Now, just a quick disclaimer before we begin. The information that I'll be talking about in this video is solely for educational purposes and it's not to be used as a substitute for professional medical advice. So if you need medical advice, please consult a medical professional such as your doctor. Now, as you can see, I actually have a script in front of me. This is my first vlog as well, I'm gonna admit, so I'm not too experienced in motor vlogging yet, but I promise it will get better. But more importantly is so that I'm able to provide you with the most accurate information possible. You know, there are a lot of things about the COVID-19 vaccine that is very specific, and sometimes when said wrongly, you know, they can bring about some misconceptions which is going to further spread the misinformation that is already running rampant out there. So moving on, how do we get the COVID-19 vaccine in Singapore? Well, currently we have 3 brands available. The first 2 are the Pfizer, BioNTech and Moderna, which are publicly available for free. Now the third and most recent one is the Sinovac, which is available in 24 private healthcare institutions for a fee about $10 to $25 for a single dose. But for the most part today, we're going to be talking about the Pfizer and Moderna, which are mRNA vaccines. So how do mRNA vaccines work? Well, in short, mRNA vaccines give your immune cells the instructions to produce a harmless piece of the coronavirus. Now this harmless piece is the spike protein that is found on the surface of the coronavirus. The key thing here is that the mRNA vaccine contains only the instructions and neither the virus nor its DNA. Once these instructions enter your body, your immune cells look at these instructions and go, oh, okay, I see these instructions, let's make some spike proteins. So once these spike proteins are produced, your immune cells look at these instructions and go, okay, no use for you guys anymore, and actually destroy the instructions. So what's left in our body is actually the spike proteins, and your immune system will look at these spike proteins and go, hey, you don't belong here, and they'll produce antibodies to actually remove them. So at the end of it all, our bodies have learned how to protect against a future actual infection of COVID-19. Now, while the mRNA vaccine does not contain any DNA, the shirt that I'm wearing does. Riders are built different. It takes a unique individual to saddle up on 2 wheels and you clamp your legs in between an engine with a tank full of flammable gas. One with a rider's DNA, a helix structure built from motorcycle chains. If you vibe with this shirt, get yours today at the LIQUI MOLY online store. Code Marcus10 when checking out to enjoy 10% off each product you purchase. This episode of Right Let's Talk is brought to you by LIQUI MOLY Singapore. So now that you guys have a better understanding of how the vaccine works, we're going to talk about what is the process like to be registered and vaccinated in Singapore. Now, as of 11 June 2021, Singaporeans aged 12 to 39 years old can register for the vaccine. The registration for the MOH appointment is a very simple 2-step process. The first being registering your interest, and the second is the appointment booking. So step 1 is to register your interest, and all you have to do is go on to www.vaccine.gov.sg, where you will fill up a form with all your personal particulars. Now once you submit the form, all you have to do is wait for the appointment booking SMS to come in. So this brings us to step 2, which is the appointment booking SMS. Now all you have to do is to click your personalized booking link in the SMS, and it will take you to book your date and time for your first and second dose. So as with any medical treatment, there will be some people who will be eligible and some people who will not. So next up, we'll be talking about the eligibility criteria. So this is based on the MOH circular as of 4th of June 2021. So if you're viewing this video at a later date, things may change, the criteria may change as well. So do keep yourself updated with the latest information, and that's available on the MOH website. So moving on to the eligibility criteria, the first one is your age. For the Pfizer vaccine, you have to be 12 years old and above, whereas for the Moderna, you have to be 18 years old and above. Now the second criteria is allergies, and there are a few types to this. The first one being any vaccine allergy, so it can be the COVID vaccine or any other vaccine such as your influenza or your tetanus or anything like that. If you develop rashes, hives, facial swelling or difficulty breathing after any vaccination, you would probably have to defer your COVID-19 vaccination and be referred to an allergist, where they will conduct some tests and assessments to determine whether you're safe to take the mRNA vaccines. The second type of allergies is any food, drugs and insect bites. Now previously, before 4th of June, if you had any of these allergies resulting in anaphylaxis, you would not be able to take the COVID-19 vaccine. But as of 4th of June 2021, the guidelines have changed, the criteria has expanded. You are able to take the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. The third criteria is blood thinning medication, and you can go ahead if your platelet count is above 50,000. Now just as a bleeding precaution, after your vaccination, you would have to press and hold your injection site firmly for 5 minutes without rubbing it. So the fourth criteria is HIV. Now if you are HIV positive, you can go ahead with the vaccination provided that your CD4 count is above 200. And all of this information can be obtained from a blood test. Now the fifth criteria is cancer. There are a few scenarios to this. Firstly, if you are on any active chemotherapy, radiation therapy or immunotherapy, you have to take it in a hospital setting. The second scenario is if you're not on any treatment or if you're on hormonal therapy such as tamoxifen, you can go ahead with the vaccination in a normal setting such as a vaccination center as well. So regardless whether you have cancer active, whichever stage, or cancer in remission, you can go ahead. So number 6 is organ transplants, and if you had none of these in the past 3 months, go ahead with your vaccination. So number 7 is aggressive immunotherapy for non-cancer conditions, and if you have none of these, you can go ahead as well. And number 8 is pregnancy. Now like cancer, there are a few scenarios to this. Firstly, if you are pregnant at any trimester, or if you're pregnant between the first and second dose, you can still go ahead with the vaccination provided that you discuss this with your OBGYN. Now the second scenario is if you're planning conception, go ahead with your vaccination as well. Final condition is that on your appointment date itself, if you had no fever in the past 24 hours and no other non-COVID-19 related vaccinations in the past 2 weeks, you can go ahead with your vaccinations. So everybody is different and we all have different health statuses. So if you have anything at all, do raise it up to the staff at the vaccination center and they will be able to determine with more certainty if you're eligible for the vaccine. But generally these 10 conditions are the ones that we look out for. So you're eligible for your COVID-19 vaccination, you've booked your appointment and you head down to the vaccination center. But what's the process like? Now we're going to cut to a video and I'm going to show you around the vaccination center. So the first thing to do when you arrive at the VC is your safe entry check-in. Afterwards, you head up to the entrance where you'll be guided by our very friendly ushers.
Good evening. Please proceed to the entrance.
Hello, good evening. Please sanitize your hands before you go in. Thank you.
So when you enter the VC, the first station is registration.
Hi, morning sir. Can I have your IC please?
This is where they register your appointment and check if you're eligible for your vaccine today.
Okay, please proceed straight ahead. My colleagues will guide you to the room, okay?
The waiting time is usually quite short, so next up is the vaccination station.
Hi, morning. Have a seat.
Here, the staff will double check your particulars and give you some information about the vaccine. And thereafter, they will administer the injection to you.
Okay, sir, are you ready to proceed with the vaccination?
If you're afraid of needles, not to worry. The needle we use is one of the smallest and will feel like an ant bite at most. And before you know it, we're done.
Sir, please proceed to the observation area. They'll call you after 30 minutes. So raise up your hand if you feel any discomfort as well.
After this, you proceed to the observation area for 30 minutes to look out for any adverse reactions. If you're feeling unwell at all, just raise your hand. Doctors and nurses are on standby. After 30 minutes, your name will be called and you proceed to the discharge station.
Hi, how are you?
Here, they will check to see if you're all okay and give you information about your next appointment or your vaccination card. Now, don't we all love free gifts? So before you leave, do remember to collect your free hand sanitizer and mask from our gift shop. And afterwards, you're done. You may go home from here. So now that you've seen what goes on at the vaccination center on the day of your appointment, we're going to be talking about some things that might be helpful to know after your vaccination. So some of the most common side effects after your vaccination would be any fever, headache or body aches, and tiredness and soreness at the injection site for about 48 hours after your vaccination. So all of these side effects should resolve after 48 hours. So if you develop a new fever, or if your fever persists, or if you develop new respiratory symptoms such as cough, runny nose, headache, loss of sense of smell and taste, do consult a doctor as they will be able to do a further assessment and determine if you need further treatment. Now, some of the possible adverse reactions you might face after your vaccination would be allergic reactions. So if you have any generalized rashes, hives or facial swelling, do visit a doctor as well and they will be able to give you some medication to alleviate the allergic reaction. But most importantly is if you develop any anaphylaxis or what we consider shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, just go straight to A&E or call 995 already. Alright, so some of the more frequently asked questions is, which hand do we use? Well, honestly, you can use either hand you want. Generally, as a vaccinator, I recommend the non-dominant hand because of the tiredness and soreness that might occur after the injection. And of course, some medical conditions do affect this decision as well. So let's say if you have a fistula from your kidney dialysis, we would probably use the other hand. The second and most frequently asked question is, oh, what are the vaccinators? Why they look so young? Like myself, many of us are SAF medics or SCDF medics, and many others are registered nurses. But rest assured, we are all qualified to safely administer the COVID-19 vaccination to you. So some of the more common misconceptions we get when members of the public come into our vaccination stations is, after the injection, can we bathe or not? Yes, you can bathe. Now, the second misconception is the second dose stronger than the first dose? Well, the first dose and the second dose are exactly the same dosage, same concentration, same medication. At any one point in time, a vaccination center will only carry one brand of vaccine. So this is to prevent the mixing out of different brands of vaccines. So you'll never have a vaccination center that carries both Pfizer and Moderna. So the third and final misconception that I'm going to be addressing is, do we reuse the needle? No. Just no. So now that we got most of the common misconceptions out of the way, we are going to be talking about the purpose of vaccinations in Singapore. Now, there are two main reasons for this. Firstly, they make it less likely for you to contract COVID-19, which reduces the risk of transmission. So the second and more important reason I feel to vaccinations is that they reduce the severity of the symptoms you will get if and in case you do contract COVID-19. And these symptoms include hospitalization and death, which are mainly what overwhelms hospital systems in the first place during a pandemic. If you're vaccinated and you do contract COVID-19, the symptoms you face would be mild. So this is actually very important in the pandemic fight because we need the hospital system to be working below or at capacity. Now, if the hospital is overwhelmed by COVID-19 cases, it is kind of like a snowball effect where firstly, they don't have enough resources to deal with the COVID-19 patients, and second, they have to divert resources. That's when a country will really start to be caught in the thick of a pandemic. So with that, we wrap up our very first episode of Right Let's Talk. Now, if you like the information you've learned, do share it around and encourage your friends and family to get vaccinated. Now, with more people vaccinated, we can gradually resume social and economic activities and hopefully return to a life that was somewhat similar to before the pandemic. So, that is all for today. I'll catch you in the next episode of Right Let's Talk.